My name is Richard Brown. I am Miss Brown's father. I look forward to meeting all of you sometime. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my experience on September 11th, 2001. I'm not even sure if most of you are alive yet. I was managing an office building downtown, just about 2 blocks from the World Trade Center. My story goes like this. I was walking up the street from my building at 40 Rector Street up to a building on Wall Street where I was working on a construction project. It was a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. The temperature was about 70 degrees, and I heard a very loud noise way up in the sky. And I looked up in the sky, and the smoke and glass was coming out of the top of one of the World Trade Towers, and it was almost like I could see the sparkling. It was almost like it was raindrops, but of glass coming down from the sky, and there were papers coming out of papers and smoke coming out of that office building. I did not think it was a very serious problem. It just seemed like, and over the years there had been some plane crashes, so I just thought it was an accident in a small plane because it was up about 85 stories in the air. About 15 minutes later, though, after I went into my my construction job at Wall Street and then came back outside, the second plane hit the South Tower down on about the 20th floor, and that was a much louder noise because the airplane was much closer to the ground. And at that point I knew that someone was attacking New York on purpose. I ran back to the building that I had been working in for the last 20 years on Rector Street while I was watching thousands and thousands of people leaving downtown New York. I went back because the staff that I had known for the last 20 years prior was still down there, and I knew that they would want some help trying to evacuate the building. We had a 20-story office building that had about 1,500 people in it, and I thought I could help. So I went back, and for about the next hour I helped my staff try to move all the people out to safety. This is where the part of my story gets a little more graphic. I then decided it was time to go home, and I went to my car, and unfortunately there were body parts near my car, and there were also body parts on the roof of the building. And then there were a lot of police and firemen around, and they told me that I could not leave. I could not take my car away, that everybody should just stay put. So I went back into the office, the lobby of our office building, and there were about 50 people left in the building, and we just stood around, just waiting for things to calm down. And then suddenly I heard the loudest noises and the darkest experience and smoke all around me when the first tower started falling. And again, it's only 2 blocks away from our building, and almost immediately all the lights went out. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face, even though we had big windows that pointed that faced the street, because all the smoke would just it blocked out all the sunlight, and we all had trouble breathing as well. And we also saw at that point the windows were starting to crash in from all the pressure of the buildings falling next to it. Police and firemen were running into our building, but then falling on the floor, choking on the dust from the World Trade Center falling. At that point I had this feeling in my stomach. I thought I was going to die, and I thought about my children, and Miss Brown is one of them, and I didn't want to die in that lobby. I wanted to do everything I could to survive and to try to get home. Sorry about the helicopter over out in the backyard here. So in a little bit of panic, but I ran out of the building. While the Trade Center was still falling, I ran out into the night, and I ran south, away from the towers. I put I had a jacket. I put my jacket over my face to try to breathe through the fibers so that the dust would somehow not get into my lungs. I was tearing, I think both from just sadness and fear, but also because of all the dust. And I ran as fast as I could, as far south as I could. And I got down near the South Street Seaport and the Brooklyn Bridge. And then I finally started walking. I could see a little bit more daylight at that point. And that was almost a mile from the Trade Center. But I started walking. There were still a lot of people around at that point, and they were walking because we felt we were out of danger at that point. And I just kept on walking. I got up to the Manhattan Bridge. I walked across the Manhattan Bridge with thousands of other people. Along the way, though, I have to say there were people who were coming out of their homes and apartments and offering us water and asking us if we wanted to sit down. Obviously, there were a lot of people very scared and very, very sad. Cell phones were not working, so I couldn't call my wife or my children to tell them I was okay. I walked into Brooklyn and I started hitchhiking to try to get a ride out to Long Island. And a taxi driver picked me up, who was an Israeli by background, who had left Tel Aviv 5 years earlier, he said, because he couldn't handle all of the terrorism. And I finally made it home. And I sat for 2 days, mostly crying, but hugging my children and my wife, grateful to be alive. And then the next day, though, I just felt that I needed to go back, because the men that had worked for me for so many years were still in the building. I knew that they would want some help trying to figure out how to put that building back together. The electrical power was cut, there was no water, and it was going to take a very big effort on everybody's part to try to put the building back together and restore some semblance of normalcy. It took many, many months. I went back every day for about 3 months, but I have to tell you, that in a way was therapeutic for me, to try to give something back and help other people who were in much tougher shape. And in the end, looking back on this many years later, it was still a very sad day, one that I will never ever forget, but I feel very lucky to have survived and been one of the lucky ones. There were 3,000 other people that passed away who didn't deserve what happened to them, and so I feel very, very lucky. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or ask questions through Ms. Brown, and again, I hope to see you in person someday.